Take a deep breath and allow your body to settle into the gentle weight of your bed, letting your muscles soften into a state of quiet stillness. As you close your eyes, we begin our journey into the rhythmic, cooling embrace of the rain, exploring why these ancient sounds possess such a profound power to soothe the human mind. What's fascinating is that the sound of falling rain is scientifically classified as pink noise, a specific type of acoustic signal that contains all frequencies audible to the human ear, but with more power and intensity at the lower end of the spectrum. Unlike white noise, which sounds like the harsh hiss of a radio between stations, pink noise mimics the deep, resonant frequencies found in nature, like a heartbeat or a distant waterfall. When you listen to a steady downpour, your brain processes this consistent, low-frequency energy as a non-threat signal. This constant acoustic texture works by decreasing the complexity of your sensory input, allowing your neural pathways to transition from an active, scanning state into a restorative, meditative rhythm. Here is something most people don't know. The human brain has an incredible capacity for acoustic masking, and rain is the world's most effective natural masker. The steady, overlapping pitter-patter of droplets creates a dense sound rug that covers up sudden, jarring noises, like a door slamming or a car horn. Research in psychoacoustics shows that our brains aren't usually woken up by the volume of a noise, but by the sudden change in volume. Because rain provides a high-density, consistent background level of sound, it raises the noise floor of your environment. This means that sudden spikes in sound are less likely to trigger the startle response in your amygdala, keeping your nervous system in a state of uninterrupted calm. As the rain begins to saturate the earth, it releases a very specific chemical compound known as geosmin, which creates that unmistakable, earthy scent we call petrichor. Geosmin is a metabolic byproduct of a group of soil-dwelling bacteria called actinomycetes, specifically from the genus Times Streptomyces **. What is truly remarkable is the human nose's extreme sensitivity to this scent. We can detect geosmin at concentrations as low as 5 parts per trillion. To put that in perspective, a shark can smell blood at 1 part per million, meaning humans are exponentially more sensitive to the scent of wet earth than a shark is to its prey. Evolutionary biologists suggest this sensitivity developed because, for our ancestors, the scent of rain was a vital indicator of nearby water sources and the imminent growth of food. While you listen to the rhythmic drumming of the water, consider the rainy day hypothesis, an evolutionary theory that explains our deep-seated sense of safety during a storm. Throughout much of human history, predators were significantly less active during heavy rainfall, as the water hindered their ability to track prey by scent and sight. Consequently, when the rain began, our ancestors could retreat into their shelters and rest with a decreased need for vigilance. That feeling of coziness you experience when tucked away while it rains outside is actually a 200,000-year-old biological relief response. Your DNA remembers that rain means the world is momentarily at a standstill, and you are safe to lower your guard. The physical sensation of the air itself changes during a rainstorm due to the Lennard effect, also known as spray electrification. When water droplets collide with each other or with the ground, they break apart, and the friction of this collision causes the surrounding air to become charged with negative ions, or anions. Scientific studies have shown that high concentrations of negative ions in the atmosphere can increase levels of serotonin, the chemical responsible for mood regulation and relaxation within the human bloodstream. As you breathe in the cool, damp air near a window during a rainstorm, You are literally inhaling a natural antidepressant that helps lower your cortisol levels and invites a sense of profound tranquility. There is also a fascinating shift in the light spectrum that occurs when the clouds gather. Overcast skies effectively filter out the high-energy blue light, wavelengths between 450 and 490 nanometers, that typically keeps us alert by suppressing our production of melatonin. On a rainy day, the dominant light is shifted toward the cooler, dimmer end of the spectrum, which signals the pineal gland to begin the gradual release of melatonin. This change in the light's color temperature tells your internal circadian clock that the day is winding down, regardless of the actual hour. It creates a biological evening, a gentle nudging of your internal systems toward rest and recuperation. What is fascinating about the sound of a single raindrop is its physics. A standard raindrop is roughly 0.5 to 4 millimeters in diameter and falls at a terminal velocity of about 9 meters per second. When that drop strikes a surface, be it a waxy leaf, a wooden deck, or a tin roof, it creates a tiny, localized shockwave. When billions of these microscopic impacts occur simultaneously, they create a chaotic but strangely organized symphony. This creates a state of soft fascination in the human brain, a psychological term for an environment that captures your attention without requiring effort. This allows your directed attention muscles to rest, which is why people often find they can think more clearly or feel more creative after listening to the rain. Notice the temperature shift as the rain begins to fall. Through a process known as evaporative cooling, the falling water absorbs heat from the surrounding air as it transitions from a liquid toward a vapor state. This can cause the ambient temperature to drop by several degrees in a matter of minutes. This is crucial for sleep, as the human body's core temperature must drop by about 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit to successfully initiate the sleep cycle. The cool, damp air of a rain-soaked night acts as a thermal invitation, helping your body shed excess heat and settle into the thermal neutral zone required for deep, restorative REM cycles. If you are near trees during a rainstorm, you are also benefiting from the release of phytoncides. These are volatile organic compounds, like terpenes and alpha-pinene, that plants and trees emit to protect themselves from rot and insects. When rain hits the needles of a Douglas fir or the leaves of an oak, it physically knocks these molecules into the air. When we inhale these forest aerosols, research has shown that they increase the activity of natural killer cells in our immune system and significantly reduce the production of stress hormones like adrenaline. The rain isn't just a sound, it is a complex delivery system for the forest's own medicine. The rhythm of the rain also encourages a phenomenon called entrainment. Our internal biological rhythms, including our heart rate and brain waves, have a tendency to synchronize with external rhythmic stimuli. The steady, predictable tempo of rain falling at a rate of roughly 60 to 80 beats or impacts per minute closely mimics the resting human heart rate. As you listen, your heart rate may naturally slow down to match the cadence of the storm. This synchronization extends to your brain waves as well. The repetitive nature of the sound encourages the brain to move out of the high-frequency beta state associated with active thinking and into the 8 to 13 Hz range of alpha waves, which characterizes a state of relaxed wakefulness. Deep within the soil, the rain is performing a vital mechanical task. As water permeates the earth, it displaces the air trapped between soil particles, forcing out gases like carbon dioxide and nitrogen. This soil respiration contributes to the complex, rich aroma of the damp earth, a scent that signals the renewal of life. For a plant, a single inch of rain is equivalent to about 27,000 gallons of water per acre. This massive influx of hydration creates a subtle, microscopic vibration in the root systems of the vegetation around you, a quiet, subterranean pulsing as the earth drinks its fill. Even the physics of how rain interacts with your shelter adds to the relaxation. If you are under a roof, the sound you hear is actually the resonant frequency of the material being struck. A tin roof, for example, has a high resonant frequency that creates a bright, sharp pinging, while a thick, thatched or shingled roof absorbs the higher frequencies and vibrates at a lower, bass-heavy hum. These vibrations are felt as much as they are heard, providing a subtle, tactile grounding for your body. The house becomes a protective shell, a resonant chamber that emphasizes the boundary between the wild, wet exterior and the dry, warm interior. Consider the barometric pressure. Before and during a rainstorm, the atmospheric pressure typically drops. This decrease in pressure can have a direct physical effect on the human body, often causing a slight expansion of the tissues and a mild decrease in blood pressure. For many, this drop in pressure induces a feeling of heaviness in the limbs and a pleasant lethargy. It is as if the atmosphere itself is pressing less hard against you, allowing you to expand and sink deeper into your mattress. The rain also changes the way sound travels. High humidity and falling droplets act as natural sound diffusers. Because water is denser than air, it absorbs and scatters high-frequency sound waves more effectively than dry air does. This is why a rainy forest or a rainy street sounds muffled or soft. The sharp edges of the world are literally rounded off by the moisture in the air. This creates an acoustic intimacy, making your immediate surroundings feel smaller, closer, and more private. As you continue to listen to this steady, liquid rhythm, feel the way the moisture in the air softens your own breath. The increased humidity, often reaching 80 or 90% during a steady rain, makes the air easier for your lungs to process, reducing the drying effect on your respiratory passages. This leads to deeper, more rhythmic diaphragmatic breathing, which further stimulates the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the command center for your parasympathetic nervous system, and as it is stimulated by your deep breathing and the calming sounds, it sends a signal to every organ in your body that it is time to rest, to digest, and to heal. You are now fully immersed in the cooling, rhythmic, and scientifically perfect environment for rest. The rain continues its steady work outside, a billion tiny impacts nourishing the earth and masking the world, while you remain here, safe, still, and profoundly relaxed. The rhythmic patterns of a downpour offer more than just a momentary lull. They provide a profound connection to our biological heritage and the very history of our planet. As you remain in this state of quiet repose, imagine the world as it was millions of years ago, when the first complex life forms began to colonize the terrestrial landscape. Scientists who study archaeoacoustics have found that the specific resonance of rain inside a limestone cavern, the type of shelter our ancestors inhabited during the Paleolithic era, acts as a natural sound dampener. The porous nature of limestone can absorb up to 60% of high-frequency sound, leaving only the deep, low-frequency hum of the water hitting the earth. This historical acoustic environment shaped the human ear to perceive these specific frequencies as synonymous with safety and sanctuary. Consider how our ancestors first began to document their understanding of this phenomenon. In 350 BC, the Greek philosopher Aristotle wrote his treatise Times Meteorologica Asterisk, where he attempted to explain the transformation of air into water during a storm. While his chemistry was rudimentary, his observation of the emotional cooling effect that follows a rainstorm was remarkably accurate. he noted that the heavy, stagnant air of summer seemed to cleanse itself through the rain. We now know that this is a result of the collision of water droplets with particulate matter. A single raindrop, as it falls, can collect and neutralize thousands of microscopic dust particles, pollen grains, and pollutants. This process, known as wet deposition, literally scrubs the atmosphere. Historical records from industrial London in the 19th century show that hospital admissions for respiratory distress dropped significantly during periods of heavy, consistent rain, as the air was mechanically cleared of coal soot and debris. Picture a marketplace in Kannauj, India, a city famous for over 400 years for capturing the essence of the rain. Long before modern chemistry identified the molecule geosmin, local perfumers were creating miti attar, or the scent of the earth. They used a process of hydrodistillation, capturing the vapors released when parched clay was struck by the first monsoon rains and trapping them in a base of sandalwood oil. What these ancient chemists were essentially bottling was the physical evidence of the soil's microbiome awakening. When the rain hits dry ground, it traps tiny bubbles of air in the pores of the soil. These bubbles then burst, propelling aerosols into the sky. This is a microscopic version of the way a glass of sparkling water releases its fizz. It wasn't until 1964 that Australian researchers Isabel Baer and Richard Thomas coined the term petrichor to describe this scent, finally giving a scientific name to a sensory experience humans had been celebrating for millennia. As the rain continues to fall in your mind's eye, observe the physical shape of the drops themselves. Contrary to the classic teardrop shape often depicted in art, a raindrop is actually a sphere that flattens as it falls. In 1904, the physicist Philip Lenard used a vertical wind tunnel to discover that raindrops larger than 2 millimeters in diameter become flattened on the bottom due to air resistance, resembling the shape of a hamburger bun. If they grow larger than about 4.5 millimeters, the air pressure becomes so great that the bun distorts into the shape of a parachute before shattering into dozens of smaller, perfectly round droplets. This constant fragmentation is what creates the multi-layered texture of the sound you hear. Each size of drop produces a different pitch upon impact, resulting in a complex, non-repeating acoustic tapestry that prevents your brain from becoming bored or overstimulated. Notice the way the vegetation around you responds to this hydration. In the late 17th century, the pioneering microscopist Nehemiah Grew first described the stomata on the underside of leaves, tiny pores that act as the plant's respiratory system. During a gentle rain, most plants keep these stomata partially open to facilitate gas exchange, but the rain also triggers a unique response called foliar uptake. While we think of roots as the primary source of hydration, many species, such as the Times Tillandsia Times or air plants, have evolved specialized cells called trichomes that allow them to absorb water directly through their leaves. This direct absorption is highly efficient. A parched plant can increase its internal turgor pressure and stand more upright within minutes of a rain shower beginning. This physical straightening of the forest contributes to the shifting shadows and textures you might notice through a window, a visual softening of the landscape that mirrors the relaxation of your own muscles. What's fascinating is the sheer volume of material being moved by this quiet process. Each year, rain is responsible for the movement of over 180 million tons of mineral-rich dust from the Sahara Desert across the Atlantic Ocean. This dust serves as a critical fertilizer for the Amazon rainforest, providing the phosphorus and calcium that the tropical soil lacks. When you listen to the rain, you are listening to a global conveyor belt of nutrients. This realization that the rain in one part of the world is a vital life link to another echoes the biophilia hypothesis, introduced by biologist E.O. Wilson in 1984. Wilson argued that humans possess an innate, genetically encoded tendency to seek connections with nature and other forms of life. The sound of rain is a primary trigger for this biophilic response, reminding our deep subconscious that the global ecosystem is functioning, providing, and flourishing. In the mid-19th century, a man named Wilson Bentley became the first person to successfully photograph a single raindrop and snowflake, dedicating his life to documenting their exquisite complexity. Bentley's 5,000 photographs revealed that no two events of precipitation are identical because the atmospheric conditions, temperature, humidity, and dust concentration change second by second. This means the rain you hear right now is a unique, unrepeatable performance. It is a form of stochastic resonance, a term used in physics to describe a system where a certain amount of noise actually helps a signal be detected. In the context of sleep, the noise of the rain helps your brain detect the signal of silence and safety, enhancing your ability to let go of the day's analytical thoughts. The way rain interacts with the architecture of the forest is equally compelling. Scientists have observed a phenomenon called crown shyness in species like the Times Dryobalanops aromatica *, where the topmost branches of trees do not touch each other, creating a canopy full of channel-like gaps. During heavy rain, this shyness is amplified as the weight of the water and the wind cause the branches to sway. This prevents the leaves from suffering mechanical damage and allows the rain to reach the forest floor more evenly. This drip-through effect creates a secondary layer of sound, the through-fall, which is deeper and more resonant than the initial interception sound of water hitting the high canopy. As you rest, imagine these layers of sound: the high, bright tapping on the leaves above, and the low, heavy thudding of the through-fall on the mossy ground below. Deep in the soil, the rain is initiating a massive communication event. The Wood Wide Web, a term coined in the 1990 seconds to describe the mycorrhizal networks of fungi connecting tree roots, becomes highly active during rain. Moisture increases the conductivity of the soil, allowing chemical signals and nutrients to travel more quickly between trees. Research has shown that older mother trees use these networks to send extra sugar and hydration to younger saplings during and after a rainstorm. The rain acts as a catalyst for this subterranean generosity, ensuring the survival of the collective forest. This interconnectedness is a soothing metaphor for our own need for community and the invisible ways we support one another, even in times of stillness. Historically, the invention of the mercury barometer in 1643 by Evangelista Torricelli allowed humans to finally see the weight of the air. He discovered that before it rains, the atmospheric pressure drops as moist air, which is actually lighter than dry air, moves in. This drop in pressure has been shown to affect the fluid in our inner ears and the joints of our bodies, often leading to a natural sense of heaviness or lethargy. In many ancient cultures, this pre-rain lethargy was respected as a time for restorative rest. Instead of fighting the urge to be productive, people would yield to the atmospheric pressure, recognizing it as a signal from the earth itself to slow down. The sound of rain on different historical roofing materials also offers a lesson in acoustic evolution. A traditional thatched roof, made of layered water reed or wheat straw, can be up to 12 inches thick. This creates an incredibly high level of sound insulation, where the rain is heard as a faint, rhythmic hiss, rather than a series of distinct impacts. In contrast, The introduction of slate tiles in the 18th century brought a sharper, more percussive sound to the human home. Each material offers a different color to the noise. As you lie there, imagine the surface above you as a shield, its texture and density transforming the wild energy of the storm into a soft, melodic vibration that blankets your room. Even the way insects react to rain contributes to the overall sense of peace. Most flying insects, such as bees and butterflies, have sophisticated sensors that detect changes in humidity and barometric pressure. Long before the first drop falls, they retreat to the underside of leaves or deep into the crevices of tree bark. This leads to a sudden, profound silence in the animal kingdom, a biological hush that precedes the sound of the water. This transition from the buzzing activity of the day to the singular focus of the rain is a powerful cue for the human nervous system to transition into its own quiet mode. As the water saturates the top layers of the earth, it reaches the horizon, or topsoil, which is typically composed of 50% pore space gaps filled with air and water. The rain fills these gaps, pushing out the air in a process called gas expulsion. This is why the Earth seems to breathe after a storm. This exchange of gases is essential for the health of the planet, as it prevents the soil from becoming anaerobic and allows the roots of every plant to receive a fresh supply of oxygen. Every drop is a breath for the Earth, a rhythmic expansion and contraction that has been occurring for 4 billion years. You are a part of this ancient, rhythmic cycle. The same water falling now has been recycled through the atmosphere for eons, having once been part of ancient oceans and primeval mists. As you listen to the history of the world falling gently outside, let your own history soften. There is nothing you need to do, no problem you need to solve. You are simply a witness to the Earth's most enduring and restorative process. The rain is doing its work, the plants are drinking their fill, and the world is safe and settled. At this moment, as the rhythmic patter continues to weave its acoustic blanket around you, it is worth contemplating the immense physical journey each drop has taken to reach the surfaces outside your window. Imagine the sky above as a massive, floating reservoir, while clouds appear as weightless as cotton candy. A standard white cumulus cloud, roughly 1 kilometer in diameter, actually weighs about 1.1 million pounds. This is equivalent to the mass of 100 adult blue whales, or approximately 2,000 African elephants suspended effortlessly in the air. What keeps this colossal weight from crashing down is the constant, invisible upward pressure of rising warm air. When you listen to the rain, you are hearing the moment that gravity finally wins the tug of war. As billions of tiny water particles coalesce around condensation nuclei, microscopic bits of dust, salt, or even bacteria, and begin their descent. Consider the raindrops themselves as tiny biological messengers, each one a perfect sphere of surface tension. As these spheres fall, they don't just hit the ground. They interact with the world like billions of microscopic percussionists. Notice the difference in the sound between rain hitting a broad leaf and rain falling onto the forest floor. A broad-leafed plant, like the Times Gunnera manicata Times or the giant rhubarb, acts as a natural drum. Its leaves can grow to be 6 feet wide, and their surface is reinforced with a network of thick, structural veins. When a raindrop strikes this surface, the leaf vibrates at a specific frequency, creating a deep, resonant thud. This is quite different from the sound of rain on the needles of a Sitka spruce. Each spruce needle is tiny and narrow, behaving like the individual bristles of a snare drum brush. The result is a soft, continuous hiss that fills the background, providing a textured layer of sound that scientists call white noise-like, but with the organic variation of nature. Think of the forest canopy as a sophisticated acoustic panel designed to soften the world, in the same way that a recording studio uses foam to absorb echoes. The layered structure of a forest, from the high overstory to the mid-canopy and the low-lying ferns, captures and redirects sound waves. What's happening now is a process of acoustic scattering. When a sound wave from the outside world tries to penetrate the rain-slicked forest, it hits thousands of different surfaces at thousands of different angles. This scatters the sound, preventing it from reaching your ears as a sharp, distinct noise. Instead, it becomes a soft, blurred hum. This is why a rainy afternoon feels so private. The atmosphere itself has become a giant, liquid muffler. Deep within the plants themselves, a fascinating hydraulic system is at work, behaving much like an architectural elevator. This process, known as hydraulic redistribution, is especially prevalent in deep-rooted species like the Times Artemisia tridentata *, or big sagebrush. During the day, these plants pull moisture from the deep, damp subsoil. But at night, when the air is cool and the rain is falling, they do something remarkable. They move that water upward through their root systems and release it into the drier topsoil. It's as if the plants are acting as a subterranean irrigation system, sharing the wealth of the rain with the smaller, shallower-rooted grasses and flowers nearby. This silent, nocturnal cooperation ensures that the entire ecosystem remains hydrated, even if the rain is brief. Notice how the water behaves when it lands on a leaf. Many plants have evolved a non-stick surface through a phenomenon known as the lotus effect, named after the Times Nelumbo nucifera *. Under a microscope, the surface of a lotus leaf is not smooth. It is covered in tiny, wax-capped pillars only a few micrometers high. When a raindrop lands, it cannot flatten out against the leaf because it is supported by these tiny pillars. Instead, the water maintains its spherical shape, like a tiny glass marble, and rolls off at the slightest tilt. As it rolls, it picks up dirt, spores, and debris, cleaning the leaf surface perfectly. You can imagine the entire forest being power-washed at a microscopic level, every leaf becoming more efficient at photosynthesis, as its pores are cleared of dust and film. The way rain interacts with the soil is not unlike a giant kitchen sponge being dipped into water. A typical cubic meter of healthy forest soil can hold up to 200 liters of water before it becomes fully saturated. This absorption is moderated by the duff layer, the thick carpet of decomposing leaves and twigs on the forest floor. This layer acts as a buffer, slowing the impact of the raindrops so they don't compact the soil. This prevents erosion and allows the water to seep in slowly, like a slow-release capsule of hydration. As the water moves through the earth, it undergoes a natural filtration process. It passes through layers of sand, silt, and clay, which act as a complex sieve, removing impurities and enriching the water with minerals like magnesium and calcium. Scientists have discovered that the frequency of rain sounds can actually influence our brain's default mode network, the part of the brain that is active when we are daydreaming or reflecting. The sound of rain typically falls within a range of 0 to 20 kilohertz, but it is the predictable randomness that is key. Unlike a ticking clock or a dripping faucet, which are perfectly rhythmic and can become annoying, rain is stochastic. Each drop falls at a slightly different interval, but the overall volume remains constant. This provides enough sensory information to keep the brain from looking for other sounds, but not enough to require active attention. It is the acoustic equivalent of looking at a flickering campfire or watching waves hit the shore. It occupies the mind just enough to prevent it from looping on stressful thoughts. Picture the sky again, but this time, think of the air's specific heat. Water has a very high specific heat capacity, about 4.18 joules per gram per degree Celsius. This means it takes a lot of energy to change the temperature of water. During a rainstorm, the falling water acts as a thermal stabilizer. It absorbs the heat of the day and slowly carries it into the earth, or it brings the cool temperatures of the upper atmosphere down to the surface. This creates a thermal inertia in your environment. The temperature doesn't swing wildly. It settles into a cool, steady middle ground. This thermal stability is a powerful biological signal to your body that it is safe to enter a deep state of rest, as your system doesn't have to work as hard to regulate your internal temperature. There is also a fascinating visual change that happens when surfaces get wet. Most natural materials, like wood and stone, are porous. When they are dry, they scatter light in many directions, making them appear lighter in color. But when rain fills those microscopic pores, it changes the way light reflects. The water allows the light to penetrate deeper into the material before being reflected back, which makes the colors appear darker and more saturated. A dry granite rock might look pale gray, but under the rain, it turns a deep, rich charcoal. This saturation of the world reduces the visual noise of your environment. The world becomes a palette of deep greens, rich browns, and soft grays, which is significantly less stimulating to the visual cortex than the bright, high-contrast light of a sunny day. What's happening at the molecular level is equally soothing. Each raindrop carries a tiny amount of kinetic energy. When a drop with a mass of 0.03 grams hits the ground at its terminal velocity of about 9 meters per second, it releases roughly 0.001 joules of energy. While this seems small, when you multiply it by the millions of drops falling every minute, it creates a subtle, low-frequency vibration that can actually be measured by sensitive seismographs. This is known as microseismic hum. Your body can feel these ultra-low frequency vibrations, even if you aren't consciously aware of them. These vibrations are similar to the purr of a cat or the low thrum of a distant engine, and they have a grounding effect on the human nervous system, helping to tune your body to the frequency of the earth itself. In the world of biology, rain is the ultimate reset button. Consider the Great Basin bristlecone pine, or times Pinus longaiva *, some of which have lived for over 4,800 years. These ancient trees have survived millennia by timing their growth perfectly with the rain. When the moisture arrives, the tree's cambium, the thin layer of living tissue under the bark, immediately begins to divide and create new cells. The sound of the rain is the sound of life being extended. Even for us, the sound of rain triggers a similar growth response in our minds, a chance to move past the old thoughts of the day and begin the restorative work of the night. As you settle further into the warmth of your covers, imagine the rain as a gentle hand pressing down on the world, quieting the frantic energy of the day. The Rayleigh scattering that makes the sky blue is replaced during a storm by Mie scattering, which happens when light hits larger water droplets. This creates the uniform, pearly gray light that we associate with rainy days. This soft, diffused light is the perfect visual accompaniment to the pink noise of the falling water. It's as if the universe has turned down the dimmer switch and put on a soft focus lens, making everything feel closer, safer, and more reachable. You are cradled in this global process, a witness to the Earth's endless cycle of evaporation and precipitation. The water that is tapping on the roof above you may have once been part of an iceberg in the Arctic, or a mist over the Pacific. It has traveled thousands of miles to find you here, in this moment of stillness. Let the weight of the clouds, the rhythm of the leaves, and the cool, thermal stability of the air guide you toward a state of profound peace. The world is being cleaned, the plants are being fed, and the atmosphere is being cleared, all while you remain perfectly still, perfectly safe, and perfectly at rest. The world you are currently imagining, cloaked in a steady, silver downpour, is part of a grander chronological tapestry that stretches back billions of years. At this very moment, consider the immense age of the water molecules descending upon the roof above you. Astronomers and geochemists have discovered that a significant portion of Earth's water, perhaps as much as 30 to 50%, is actually older than the Sun itself. These molecules originated in the interstellar medium, surviving the violent birth of our solar system before eventually finding their way into our oceans and, now, into the clouds. As you listen to the rhythmic tapping, you are essentially hearing the percussion of ancient cosmic travelers, a realization that can make your own daily concerns feel as fleeting as a single mist-shrouded breath. One compelling aspect of our connection to this cycle is the residence time of a water molecule in the atmosphere. On average, a single drop of water remains in the sky for about 8.9 days before it falls as precipitation. This relatively short window means the atmosphere is in a constant, rapid state of self-renewal. When it rains, the air is undergoing a massive mechanical purification. Scientists use the term below-cloud scavenging to describe how falling raindrops collide with aerosol particles such as soot, sea salt, and mineral dust, and drag them to the ground. A moderate rain shower can reduce the concentration of these airborne particles by up to 50% in less than an hour. This provides a biological explanation for why you find it easier to breathe when it rains. The air is literally thinner, cleaner, and stripped of the microscopic debris that taxes your respiratory system. Picture the trees standing in this downpour, particularly the conifers like the ponderosa pine or the Norway spruce. These trees possess a unique mechanical response to moisture known as hygroscopic movement. Within their pine cones, the scales are composed of two layers of fibers that react differently to water. When the humidity rises or rain begins to fall, the outer layer of the scale absorbs more moisture and expands faster than the inner layer. This causes the pine cone to fold its scales tightly shut, protecting the seeds within from the dampness. You might see these closed cones as a visual signal of the forest's quiet, defensive posture, a biological tucking in that mirrors your own instinct to wrap yourself in blankets as the storm settles in. Deep within the understory, the mosses are engaging in a display of sheer hydraulic power. Species like Thymes sphagnum Thymes moss are famous for their cellular architecture, consisting of large, hollow hyaline cells. These cells act like microscopic cisterns, allowing the moss to absorb and hold between 20 and 30 times its dry weight in water. As the rain falls, the moss carpet expands, thickening and softening the forest floor. This saturation significantly alters the acoustic impedance of the ground. While dry, hard earth reflects sound waves, a rain-soaked moss bed absorbs them, creating an environment that is physically quieter. In this way, the rain doesn't just create sound, it creates a structural silence that allows your mind to withdraw from the external world. What's happening now is a shift in your internal state that researchers call blue mind, a term coined by marine biologist Wallace J. Nichols. This theory suggests that humans have an evolutionary preference for blue spaces, environments dominated by water. Proximity to water, whether in its liquid form or as the sound of rain, triggers a mild meditative state characterized by a sense of calm and general happiness. This is partially because water sounds are non-associative, meaning they don't demand a specific reaction or tell a story that your brain needs to follow. Unlike a conversation or a television program, the rain is a content-free signal. It provides a steady stream of sensory information that occupies your attention filters without ever overloading them. Consider the earth beneath the moss, where the soil microbiome is undergoing a massive population explosion. In just 1 teaspoon of healthy forest soil, there are as many as 1 billion individual bacteria and several miles of fungal hyphae. When rain hits the ground, it often brings with it a small amount of dissolved nitrogen. While our atmosphere is 78% nitrogen, plants cannot use it in its gaseous form. However, during a storm, the kinetic energy and the chemical reactions in the clouds, often aided by the electrical charge of lightning, convert atmospheric nitrogen into nitrates. This liquid fertilizer is delivered directly to the roots, stimulating a surge of metabolic activity. This subterranean awakening is a quiet, invisible celebration, a reminder that even when the world seems dark and dormant, it is being profoundly nourished at a cellular level. Notice how your own home responds to the moisture in the air. If your house is built with timber, you might hear the occasional creak or pop as the humidity rises. This is because wood is hygroscopic, meaning it continues to exchange water vapor with the surrounding air even years after it has been harvested. As the wood fibers absorb moisture from the rainy air, they physically swell. This can cause the internal stresses in a house's frame to shift slightly, leading to those familiar, comforting house noises. Far from being alarming, these sounds are a reminder that the shelter around you is a living, breathing entity, reacting to the environment in the same way you do. It is a protective shell that is working to maintain the boundary between the wildness of the rain and the stillness of your bed. Another compelling detail is the pH of the rain itself. Natural rainwater is slightly acidic, typically having a pH of about 5.6. This is due to carbon dioxide in the atmosphere dissolving into the droplets and forming a mild carbonic acid. This subtle acidity is a key driver of the weathering process. Over vast timescales, this gentle rain carves out river valleys and dissolves limestone to create vast cave systems. It is a lesson in the power of persistence. The softest substance in the world can reshape the hardest stone through nothing more than steady, rhythmic repetition. As you lie there, you might reflect on how your own small, consistent habits of rest and self-care are just as powerful, gradually shaping your internal landscape into one of peace and resilience. Look closely at the surface of a pond or a large puddle during this downpour. You'll see thousands of crown splashes and Worthington jets. When a raindrop hits a body of water, it creates a cavity, which then collapses and shoots a tiny jet of water straight back up into the air. This process traps a microscopic bubble of air underwater. When these billions of tiny bubbles rise to the surface and burst, they release a fine mist of aerosols. This is a primary way that moisture and minerals are cycled back into the lower atmosphere. It's a beautiful, self-sustaining loop. The rain creates the mist, which then forms the next generation of clouds. This cyclical nature is the heartbeat of our planet, a rhythm that is fundamentally at odds with the linear, hurried pace of modern human life. In the world of animals, the rain triggers a phenomenon called wood rasping or vibration sensing. Earthworms, for example, are known to emerge from the soil during a rainstorm. While the traditional explanation was that they were avoiding drowning, more recent research suggests they may be responding to the specific vibrations of the raindrops hitting the soil. These vibrations are remarkably similar to the sounds made by moles, their natural predators moving through the earth. Some humans have even learned to fiddle or charm worms by vibrating the ground with a wooden stake, mimicking the rain. For the worm, the rain is a signal of a changing world, an invitation to move and explore the surface under the cover of the damp, cool air. At this moment, your brain is undergoing a process called sensory habituation. Because the sound of the rain is constant and predictable, your thalamus, the brain's sensory relay station, begins to filter it out as background. This allows your directed attention to rest. Most of our day is spent in a state of effortful attention, where we have to consciously focus on tasks and block out distractions. The rain provides a restorative environment where your attention can become soft and effortless. This state is a vital precursor to sleep. It is as if the rain is a librarian in the vast library of your mind, gently walking through the aisles and closing all the books you left open during the day, preparing the space for the quiet of the night. The sheer weight of the rain is a fact that often goes unnoticed. If an inch of rain falls on a single acre of land, it accounts for approximately 113 tons of water, or about 27,000 gallons. When you think about a storm moving across a county or a state, you are contemplating millions of tons of water being moved across the landscape. Yet, despite this massive physical force, the rain feels gentle. This is because the water is broken down into such tiny, dispersed units. It is a massive power that has been softened for our benefit, a heavy burden that has been transformed into a light, rhythmic massage for the earth. This shift in the world, the cooling of the air, the darkening of the stones, the closing of the pine cones, is all part of a global settling. The rain is the planet's way of exhaling. As the moisture fills the air and the ground, the frantic chemistry of the sun-drenched day slows down. You are invited to join this planetary exhale. Let the cosmic age of the water molecules, the mechanical scrubbing of the air, and the structural silence of the mossy forest floor convince your nervous system that the time for action has passed. The world is being managed, the cycle is continuing, and you are exactly where you need to be. In the stillness of your room, surrounded by the acoustic muffler of the falling rain, you are safe to let the rhythms of the earth become your own. Deep within the heart of a steady downpour, a hidden mechanical world is unfolding, one that operates on principles of physics, designed to lull the mammalian brain into a state of profound equilibrium. Picture this. As the raindrops descend, they are essentially tiny thermal regulators. What is notable is a process called latent heat release. When water vapor in the upper atmosphere condenses into liquid droplets, it releases a small amount of heat energy into the surrounding air. This process, occurring on a massive scale, creates the gentle, stable warmth often felt at the beginning of a warm front. This stable temperature is a key reason why rain feels like a protective envelope. It creates a thermal consistency that is far more predictable than the sharp, biting shifts of a dry, windy day. Consider the acoustic architecture of the rain, which is far more complex than a simple shh sound. If you were to analyze the sound of a rainstorm on a spectrogram, you would see that it perfectly mirrors the 1F noise pattern, where the power of the sound is inversely proportional to its frequency. In the world of acoustics, this is known as fractal sound, because fractal patterns are found everywhere in nature. From the branching of your own lungs to the structure of a coastline, your brain is evolutionarily predisposed to find them. soothing. This mathematical harmony acts as a bridge, connecting your internal biological rhythms to the external environment. This isn't just noise, it's a structural language that your nervous system recognizes as home. Scientists discovered that the actual pitch of a raindrop hitting water is not caused by the water itself, but by a tiny bubble of air trapped beneath the surface upon impact. This bubble oscillates at a high frequency, creating a plink sound. When billions of these microscopic oscillations occur, they blend into the rich, textured hum we hear. This is an example of non-linear acoustics, where many small, chaotic events combine to create a perceivably smooth and steady signal. This smoothness is a primary reason why rain sounds are so effective for sleep. They provide a high-density sensory stream that is just complex enough to keep the brain's threat detection systems busy, but predictable enough that they don't require any active processing. Notice the way the world's colors shift as the saturation increases. If you look at a rain-slicked street or a wet forest path, you are seeing a phenomenon called the Fresnel effect. When a surface is dry, light scatters in every direction. However, when a thin film of water covers that surface, it creates a smoother interface for the light to bounce off of. This increases the amount of specular reflection, making everything look deeper and more vivid. The refractive index of water is approximately 1.333, and this slight bending of light as it passes through the raindrops and onto the wet leaves creates a visual softening. The world loses its hard, jagged edges and takes on a velvety, suede-like texture. This visual dimming and softening is a biological cue for the eyes to relax their focus, which in turn signals the rest of the body to lower its tension. At this very moment, the humidity in the air is performing a silent service for your skin and respiratory system. When the relative humidity reaches 80 or 90% during a storm, the vapor pressure deficit between your body and the air decreases. This means your skin loses less moisture to evaporation, and your mucous membranes stay more hydrated. This physiological state of being perfectly balanced with the moisture levels of the environment is incredibly grounding. It reduces the micro-stresses your body feels when it is trying to maintain its internal hydration in a dry, artificial environment. You are literally at one with the atmosphere, your body breathing in sync with the heavy, water-rich air. What's happening now in the world of small creatures is equally tranquil. Consider the common garden snail, *Helix aspersa*. For a snail, rain is the ultimate invitation to explore. Their bodies are roughly 80% water, and they rely on hygroscopic mucus to move. This mucus can absorb up to 100 times its weight in water, and during a rainstorm, the snail can glide over surfaces with 50% less energy than on a dry day. They move in pedal waves, small muscular contractions that look like a slow, rhythmic dance. The rain turns the world into a frictionless playground for these slow-moving travelers. Observing or even just imagining this slow, deliberate pace can help entrain your own mind to a slower frequency, away from the rapid-fire thoughts of the day. Deep within the trees, a different kind of movement is occurring. The xylem vessels, the microscopic tubes that carry water from the roots to the leaves, are under immense negative pressure. In a 100-foot tall tree, this pressure can be as high as -15 bars. When it rains, the tree can finally relax this hydraulic tension. As the leaves absorb water directly through their cuticular layers, the tree's internal pressure stabilizes. This is a mechanical sigh of relief that can actually be measured with sensitive instruments called dendrometers, which show that the trunks of trees slightly expand as they drink. The entire forest is physically breathing out, expanding its girth and softening its fibers in response to the rain. Scientists have also noted that the negative air ions generated by falling water have a direct effect on human cognitive function. In a process called ion-induced serotonin modulation, these ions are thought to improve the efficiency of the brain's ability to process oxygen. This doesn't make you more alert in a caffeinated sense. Rather, it makes your brain more efficient at entering a state of rest and digest. The high concentration of these ions, sometimes reaching levels of 10,000 ions per cubic centimeter near falling water, helps to clear the air of positive ions, which are often associated with the static electricity and dry air that cause irritability and headaches. Notice the scent that has now fully developed the petrichor. A curious detail is that the scent isn't just wet dirt. It is a complex cocktail of oils and spores. During dry periods, plants like the Thymes Laurea tridentata Thymes or creosote bush release oils into the soil to prevent other seeds from germinating and competing for limited water. When the rain falls, these oils are launched into the air along with geosmin spores. This scent acts as a chemical signature of the Earth's life cycles. Interestingly, humans are so sensitive to this smell that some researchers believe it is a vestigial sense left over from our time as nomadic hunters, when the smell of rain could lead us to fertile lands from miles away. This scent isn't just pleasant. It is an ancient, all-clear signal for our species. If you were to look at the soil at a microscopic level, you would see capillary action in full effect. This is the ability of water to flow into narrow spaces without the assistance of, and even in opposition to, external forces like gravity. The water molecules climb the walls of the tiny pores in the soil through a combination of adhesion and cohesion. This creates a subterranean network of moving water that acts as a giant, liquid nervous system for the planet. As you lie in bed, imagine this quiet, upward climb of water through the earth beneath you. It is a slow, steady, and unstoppable force that ensures the survival of every blade of grass and every towering oak. The temperature of the rain itself is also a factor in its sedative quality. Raindrops are typically 5 to 10 degrees cooler than the ambient air temperature. When these drops hit the ground and evaporate, they pull heat away from the surface in a process called sensory cooling. This creates a cool air pocket near the ground. For humans, whose core temperature naturally drops during the transition into sleep, this localized cooling is a perfect external aid. It helps your body reach its thermoneutral zone more quickly, which is the temperature range where the body doesn't have to work to produce heat or cool itself down. There is a specific phenomenon called acoustic masking that is especially effective during a steady rain. Because rain produces sound across such a wide frequency range, it is incredibly difficult for your brain to unbundle it. This results in what psychologists call perceptual dulling. Your brain simply gives up on trying to analyze the background noise and retreats inward. This is the acoustic equivalent of a heavy velvet curtain being drawn across a window. It doesn't just block the light, it adds a layer of soft, insulating weight to the room, making your personal space feel smaller, warmer, and more protected. At this very moment, in the ponds and wetlands nearby, amphibians like the Thymes Rana temporaria Thymes or common frog are experiencing a profound sensory awakening. Frogs are bimodal breathers, meaning they can breathe through their lungs and their skin. However, cutaneous respiration, breathing through the skin, only works efficiently when the skin is moist. For a frog, a rainstorm is a moment of respiratory freedom. where they can absorb oxygen more easily from both the air and the water. This biological ease is mirrored in the way we feel when we listen to the rain. We sense the world becoming easier to inhabit, easier to breathe in, and easier to exist in without effort. Picture the raindrops as they strike the glass of a window. Each drop forms a meniscus, a curved upper surface caused by surface tension. As the drops join together, they create rivulets that follow the path of least resistance. This is an example of gravity-driven flow, and watching or hearing this process is a reminder of the fundamental laws of the universe at work. There is no struggle in the rain. The water simply follows the curve of the earth, the slope of the roof, and the pull of the core. This yielding to the natural laws is the ultimate metaphor for sleep. Like the rain, you are simply yielding to the gravity of your own fatigue and the natural rhythm of the night. You are now deeply settled into this rain-washed world. The science of the sound, the chemistry of the air, and the mechanical relief of the trees have all combined to create a sanctuary for your mind. The atmosphere is a colossal, cooling lung, breathing moisture and peace into every corner of the landscape. As the rain continues its fractal, mathematical dance, let yourself be carried by the steady 1F frequency of the storm. The earth is drinking, the air is clearing, and the world is holding its breath in a state of quiet, liquid grace. You are safe, you are cool, and you are part of this beautiful, enduring cycle. As the heavy downpour begins to taper, transforming into a fine, persistent drizzle, a new series of physical and biological processes takes hold. Scientists classify these smaller droplets, which measure less than 0.5 millimeters in diameter, as drizzle. Unlike the larger, more percussive raindrops, these tiny spheres fall at a much slower terminal velocity of approximately 2 meters per second. This change in speed alters the acoustic landscape from a rhythmic drumming to a soft, continuous hush. This acoustic transition mirrors the shifting states of your own consciousness as you move from active thought toward the threshold of sleep. What is happening now is a gradual saturation of the Earth's upper layers. When the soil reaches what agronomists call field capacity, it has absorbed all the water it can hold against the pull of gravity. Any additional moisture begins a slow vertical journey known as percolation. Using a process called matrix flow, the water moves through the tiny pores of the soil at a rate that can range from 0.001 to 1 centimeter per hour, depending on the concentration of clay and organic matter. This slow, downward migration is a physical embodiment of the way your thoughts are now beginning to sink, moving from the surface level of the day's events down into the deeper, quieter reservoirs of the subconscious. In the forest, the night-blooming flora begins to respond to this increased humidity. The Times, Cestrum nocturnum asterisk, or night-blooming jasmine, is particularly sensitive to these conditions. When the relative humidity rises above 80%, the plant's metabolic pathways trigger the release of a complex bouquet of volatile organic compounds, including linalool and benzyl acetate. These molecules are heavier than air and are carried on the damp, cool breeze of the rain. As you breathe in, imagine these scent molecules interacting with your olfactory bulb, which has a direct neural pathway to the limbic system, the brain's emotional center. This chemical interaction bypasses the analytical parts of your brain, providing a direct biological signal to relax. Deep within the cellular structure of the trees, a process of turgor-pressure stabilization is reaching its peak. During the day, trees lose water through transpiration, but at night, especially during rain, they can replenish their internal stores. The water enters the roots and moves upward through the xylem, driven by a combination of capillary action and root pressure. This pressure can reach up to 0.5 megapascals in some species, literally inflating the plant's cells and making the leaves firm and resilient. You might think of this as the forest's way of recharging its batteries. In a similar way, your body is preparing to initiate its own cellular repair. As the external world settles, your internal world begins its own percolation toward rest. Scientists who study the neurology of sleep focus on the ventrolateral preoptic nucleus, or the VLPO. This tiny cluster of neurons acts as a sleep switch. When the environment is cool, quiet, and rhythmic as it is during a rainstorm, the VLPO begins to release inhibitory neurotransmitters like GABA and galanin. These chemicals work by turning off the brain's arousal centers in the hypothalamus. This is a step-by-step mechanical shutdown, a biological descending of the gears that ensures your transition into sleep is smooth and uninterrupted. Notice how the sound of the dripping eaves creates a very low-frequency vibration. These sounds are often in the range of 0.1 to 0.2 Hz, a frequency known as microsisms. While these vibrations are too subtle for the human ear to hear as a distinct pitch, they are felt by the body's mechanoreceptors. Research has shown that these ultra-low frequency vibrations can help stabilize the heart rate and encourage the brain to enter the delta wave state. Delta waves, which oscillate between 0.5 and 4 Hz, are the slowest and highest amplitude brain waves, characterizing the deepest stages of dreamless sleep. At this very moment, your body is also managing its sleep pressure. Throughout the day, a molecule called adenosine has been slowly building up in your brain as a byproduct of cellular energy consumption. The more adenosine that accumulates, the more pressure you feel to sleep. This is remarkably similar to the way water accumulates in an aquifer. When the level of adenosine reaches its critical head, it triggers the transition into unconsciousness. The steady, cooling sound of the rain provides the perfect environment for this pressure to finally be released, allowing you to sink into the deep, dark layers of rest. There is a fascinating biological process that occurs in the brain during deep sleep called the glymphatic system. In 2012, researchers at the University of Rochester discovered that during sleep, the interstitial space between brain cells increases by as much as 60%. This allows cerebrospinal fluid to flow rapidly through the brain, clearing away metabolic waste products like amyloid beta. This process is the brain's version of the rain scrubbing the forest. Just as the rain clears the particulate matter from the atmosphere and flushes the debris from the leaves, your sleep will now begin to clear the metabolic byproducts of your waking hours, ensuring you wake with a refreshed and clarified mind. Consider the temperature regulation of your body. To initiate sleep, your core body temperature must drop by approximately 1 to 2 degrees Celsius. The rain outside is assisting this process through the heat of vaporization. As the water on the ground and trees evaporates into the cool night air, it absorbs thermal energy from the environment. This localized cooling effect is a powerful biological cue. As your skin temperature rises slightly to release internal heat, the cool, damp air of the rain-soaked world helps to draw that heat away, acting as a natural thermal catalyst for your descent into the deeper stages of sleep. Deep within the earth, the water has now passed through the soil and reached the water table, the boundary between the unsaturated and saturated zones. Here, the water moves much more slowly, often only a few meters per year. This is the world of the aquifer, where water is stored in the cracks and spaces between rocks for centuries. This is the ultimate state of stillness. In your own mind, you are reaching a similar saturated zone, a place where the frantic movement of the day's thoughts has slowed to a near halt, leaving only a deep, still reservoir of quiet. The rhythm of your breathing has now likely synchronized with the steady cadence of the rain. This is a form of physico-mechanical entrainment. Your respiratory rate, which may have been 16 to 20 breaths per minute during the day, is now slowing to a resting rate of 12 to 15. This slower rhythm increases the efficiency of gas exchange in your alveoli and further stimulates the vagus nerve. This nerve, the longest of the cranial nerves, acts as a braking system for your heart, ensuring that every system in your body is moving toward a state of total, unmoving peace. As the light of the day has long since faded, your pineal gland has fully transitioned into its nocturnal role. In the absence of short-wavelength blue light, which is naturally filtered out by the thick clouds of a rainstorm, melatonin production is at its peak. This hormone serves as the biological pacemaker, coordinating the circadian rhythms of every cell in your body. It signals the closure of the day's metabolic window and the opening of the restorative window. You are now fully aligned with the nocturnal rhythms of the planet, a biological symphony of darkness, moisture, and rest. Picture the raindrops finally coming to a rest on the tip of a moss-covered stone. The surface tension of the water creates a perfect, shimmering dome. Eventually, the weight becomes too much, and the drop falls, joining the silent, underground flow. This is the final stage of the journey. Every drop has found its place. Every leaf has been nourished. The atmosphere has been cleaned, and the earth has been replenished. The world is now in a state of dynamic equilibrium, where all the forces of nature are in perfect balance. You, too, are in a state of balance. The weight of your limbs, the coolness of the air, and the steady, fractal sound of the drizzle have all led you to this threshold. There is nothing left to observe, nothing left to learn, and nothing left to do. The earth is handling the work of growth and renewal, and you are free to simply exist in the quiet center of it all. As you drift toward the final boundary of wakefulness, let these affirmations rest in your mind like the softest mist. My body is as heavy and still as the rain-soaked earth. My breath is as rhythmic and steady as the falling water. My mind is as clear and cool as the evening air. I am protected by the sanctuary of my home. I am part of the earth's restorative cycle. The day's work is done and washed away. I am safe in the quiet, liquid darkness. Every cell in my body is beginning its work of repair. I release the pressure of the day into the deep reservoir of sleep. The sound of the rain is the sound of my own peace. I am sinking into a deep, dreamless rest. The world is safe, settled, and still. I am cradled by the ancient rhythms of the planet. My rest is deep, restorative, and complete. The rain continues its gentle, persistent hush outside, a billion tiny messengers of peace. The trees are drinking, the soil is breathing, and the world is at rest. You are home. You are safe. You are asleep. Good night.